Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Everything is Fine, Nothing is Ruined podcast. I'm your regular host, Hassan, joined by other regular host, Tristan.
That's me!
And today, folks, we're here to talk to you about Elden Ring.
Whoa!
That's a game from the studio
Whoa!
Done Software.
Whoa, Hassan.
Yeah, no, we're going there, Tristan, okay?
Man.
Miyazaki-san, try Miyazaki Get Gone.
Whoa, dude. That's too harsh. You can't be saying these things about Miyazaki-san from Software.
Well,
that guy's
it
genius
wasn't
and
just
stuff.
him. It was also George R.R. Don't get me starting on how much this game sucks.
That's pretty good. More like George R.R. has a hard time starting a book. Whoa!
Oh, yeah. Maybe they should go back to their other series, like Dudborn.
Yeah. You can see the scene about Patrick Rothfuss, or as I call him, Patrick Rothfussy Starter, because he can't do his book. Yeah! That's actually... Yeah.
In the Souls Go Take a Hike genre.
Yeah. I like that I just made two jokes specifically for people who read and not anybody.
But today we're here to talk about how we hate Elden Ring. It's our second episode on this, so... Well, what?
Well, I mean, so, it is the second episode on me having problems with this game.
Yeah, and how you hate it. We agreed that we don't like the Souls-like game, you know.
Well, I do. I like them a lot. And, well, okay. Elden Ring I had already done an episode on this specific topic back in 2022. I was in 2002. 2022. The pandemic was still out, and it's still out. It still is. But back then, in March, I think, I had put 50 hours into Elden Ring, and then I said, nah, I'm good, man.
Yeah, no, we agreed. From Software, not good games. We were on the same level, finally.
That one time, yeah. That one time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think From Software, you typically do make pretty good games.
Well, you made some bad decisions in the past. We can forget that, but we agree. Elden Ring, bad.
Yeah, well...
Oh, son of a bitch.
Well, like...
Stab me in my back.
I should, well... Okay. Well,
in my
right in the
back.
It's not that. It's more, okay, it's less of a stab in the back, and more as if I just kind of, like, hit you in the back with a baseball bat. Not really hard. Hey, to Triste. Ooh. That's that. That one, huh? It's not that bad. Look, I'm still mostly with you on the Elden Ring. Where's that title card? Jesus. Okay. It's always in the same spot. It always surprises me. Okay. So the thing about Elden Ring. Okay. I gave it a second try because I decided because I couldn't jive with it on my first outing doesn't mean I can't keep jiving with it, because this happened to me with Dark Souls as well. When I first played that game, there was just, like, I got to a certain point, I was like, yeah, I'm doing alright, but I kind of just get it and I'm fine. I think I'm done with this game. And then I put it down for a few months, maybe. And then I had watched a speed run, and I was like, oh, you can do some crazy shit in this game. I didn't know you could do crazy shit. Let's go. So I went back and played Dark Souls, and I have 10 playthroughs of that game, roughly, across like 3 different platforms. And I mean, that's the kind of game I beat in like 10 hours now, if that, because I just know where things are. I just go for them, and I know how to beat the bosses and all that stuff. Same with Dark Souls 2. I put 400 hours into that game, but that's because Dark Souls 2 is just a really good, like, it's kind of Dark Souls, but an arcade game in almost a way, because you're still managing your endurance and all that stuff, but the way things feel, it's a lot like, it's a little punchier, but it's still a lot lighter. It's almost like the animations don't matter, because it's almost like a one-to-one, like as you hit the buttons, like boop, attack goes out, as opposed to wind up and attack. So that's kind of the thing with Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 3 has returned to form, and Bloodborne is arranged to be one of my favorite games of all time. And Sekiro, I think, is still one of the hottest games that From Software has ever made. It's not my favorite one they've ever made, or my favorite game, but I think it's like they did something different and very masterful in Sekiro. And then Elden Ring came out. Everybody had the same opinion, which is, this is a masterpiece.
Yeah, it's I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, Elden Ring has literally sold more copies than the entirety of the Dark Souls series combined. I could be wrong, but I think that was the case, because that game sold well over 20 million units.
It did,
I think that's more than Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3 has sold together.
Yeah, exactly. And and then of course this year Armored Core 6 comes out. And I'll get to Armored Core 6, not in this episode, but down the line, because that game is, that was made for me.
Armored Core sucks. That's the title they should have given it, right?
No. It's really good, Hassan. You should try it.
I actually do like the Armored Core series.
You see what? Okay, quick aside with the Armored Core series. When I started playing it, I forgot about. Oh right, you can't hold this controller like a normal person. What am I doing? So of course, you hold it. Actually, wait, here. I have this. You hold your controller like this, right? Normally, and I was like, oh yeah, this is how you normally do it. And I was like, oh wait, this is how you have to do it with Armored Core. So you control your character with your fucking palms. And so you hit buttons as well. And you got this, because And then I remembered that, and my hands cramped for a month straight. It was great. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I would say Armored Core is From Software's second best game series or games.
Yeah, I'd say so. Kind of sad that it took a weird break and like a downward spiral in like the later.
Look, man, I've still been waiting since 2000 for them to return to their best game. So, with the Adventures of Cookie and Cream.
Oh, well, that's fair. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, that one's all right. I thought you were gonna say what's it called, Metal Wolf Chaos. So.
Oh, no. I mean, I like that game, but that game's also not the best.
It's not very good.
Play-wise.
No, it's not very good, but it is a From Software game, and it basically is an Armored Core game, but set in,
It plays much worse,
US.
Though.
It plays a lot worse, yeah. It's a lot more arcadey, too. It's kind of weird. Anyway, so Elden Ring was talked about as a masterpiece. And I was like, no, that's definitely Bloodborne. If I'm going to hang the masterpiece plaque on like any one game that Miyazaki and From Software have made, it is 100% The Adventures of Cookies and Cream, but then also Bloodborne. Bloodborne, for sure. But that's just...
it's very interesting that, especially very recently, today or yesterday, that you can paint a lot of parallels between a lot of From Software's recent Souls-like games, to like The Legend of Zelda, and how they reached Breath of the Wild, and that is this paradigm shift for them. That the popularity of that game is leaps above anything else, and the same is true of like Elden Ring, and how they are departures from the original styles that, when you look at the discourse, you kind of only get this just sea of voices, saying, yeah, this is their magnum opus. This is the culmination of this, and you know, these things are the pinnacles of their media, blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and that it's very hard to find those dissenting opinions and people who feel otherwise, and whether that is, you know, it's rare, but you know, I definitely see some people talking about, you know, the Zelda games of like, you know, hey, I still like those games, but I actually prefer the more linear styles that they have done in the past, and that, you know, thought those had more interesting dungeons, and that, you know, hey, the do whatever you want, or not do whatever you want, but hey, these puzzles don't have, you know, a fixed solution to them. Oh yeah, you know, you could solve this one by using the magnet and do blah blah blah. No, this one, if you freeze it and then cause these explosions, that'll let you knock this thing. You know, there are definitely people out there who are like, you know, I get it, but that's just not me. I would prefer a much more linear puzzle that I do have to sit there and really get in the mindset of the game designer. And there definitely are some people out there that feel the same about the Souls-like stuff. You know, those games were like, they were never quite linear. They were always a little bit Metroidvania in a way that you would find shortcuts. You'd have to double back, blah blah blah. But definitely I've heard other people say that similarly, of like, oh, I like Elden Ring, but like that open nature, the open world, the go anywhere, explore around, you know, stumble across stuff. It's like, that's neat, but I kind of prefer if it's just like, no, this is literally the path we want you to go to. Hey, you're going to start in this castle area and then go into this forest and then this swamp and then this volcano area, you know. Hey, there's literally, no, you fight the bosses in this order. You know, I think there is room for both those things.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, I famously, especially back when I first talked about Elden Ring, I have a hard time these days with open world games because they just require too much time for me to really care about them. And I like a game where, like, I like compartmentalization, and you know, the majority of From's other games, they usually are a lot more linear, even if they are more Metroidvania style, where you can kind of like, you start off at the Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 1, and you can go like this way.
No, Link is from The Legend of Zelda. You got your games confused.
Anyway, you can go a few different ways, and it's just like when you're at that starting point in the game, there are a few different directions you can go, but there's not every direction you can go. And I like that, because that means that you are discovering things sequentially. And if anybody knows anything about me as well, I also like doing weird puzzle boxes. And one of the things I like about those is like sequential discovery puzzles, where you open one little compartment, it's like, oh shit, there's a coin here. Where does that go? Ooh, does it go in there? Stuff like that. I like that stuff, and like that's what a linear game gives me, the satisfaction of like, I can now do this, and like I get to discover things as it wants me to discover them. In an open world game, I tend to discover things beyond the scope of when I should, or when I'm ready for them.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. You know, I do like open world games.
Yeah, they're fine.
You know, but you talking about like the puzzle boxes remind me of, you know, I think a pretty good analogy, for lack of a better term, but I think one of the reasons why people sometimes don't like open world games is one of the first escape rooms that I ever went to, and I'm not like the biggest escape room person ever, but I'd say I probably end up doing 1 to 2 a year. But one of the first ones that I ever went to, it had a bookshelf in it, and it was just full of books.
Ooh, okay. All right.
And that's a problem, because that to me is your open world, where you're like, well,
yes,
like, it's just one of these books a clue? Is it the title of the book? Is it the author's? Do I have to flip through it? Am I going to find like writing scrawled on one, right? It gives you.
Yeah. There's too many choices.
An open world lets you go anywhere. You can poke in all these corners, but it can also be too many corners, right? You can get hung up like that, where you're just going like, okay, there's there's like 80 books on this bookshelf.
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, surely you wouldn't put all these books here if they didn't mean anything.
No,
you just wouldn't have a bookshelf then, because otherwise I'd waste my time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I definitely have experienced that in open world games of just running around and being like, well, surely there's a reason for this area over here. Well, you wouldn't just have this big empty area for no reason, right?
There's a lot of like, where the hell am I going? And like, to Elden Ring's credit, no area is totally empty. There's always something there to discover. And same with like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Those games have like, you go in one direction, you're going to find something within the next like maybe a minute or two, if that. And Elden Ring does have that level of discovery that everybody really liked from Breath of the Wild. I almost said Breath of the Kingdom. So, anyway, because Elden Ring has that level of discovery, people kind of latched onto that aspect of it. And they said, this is a great fantasy game because you can go in any direction. You can find stuff when you want to. Also allows you to tackle bosses the way you want to, when you want to. If you can't beat a boss now, that's your cue to turn around and go and level up elsewhere, go explore the world, come back to him, kind of thing. And as an older school Dark Souls player, I say no. I say, that boss, you call him impossible? No. I disagree. I have to sit here, and I must go and beat him. But here's the thing. That's the habit that Dark Souls games have got me into. But I know that Elden Ring wants me to do something else. So I go and do the thing that it wants me to do, which is go out and discover everything else. And then that boss is still there, because that boss is typically part of a a gated pathway kind of thing into the legacy dungeon of whatever you're trying to get to. Whether it's like Stormvale Castle with Margaret, or one of the opening bosses, like what's his name, Radon? There's a big red wolf you gotta fight, and like that kind of gates your way into
Clifford.
Sure, Clifford. That gates your way a little further into like the rest of this the Raya Lucari Academy, and that kind of stuff. Where the big boss is. Like every time you go and try and fight a big boss, there's some sort of gated path to like try and get to them. With the exception of Radon, who is just out in the open. You can walk through his castle, and it's just like, are you ready to fight this guy? And it goes like, yeah, cool. Good fucking luck, because he's really tough. He's real tough, and I beat him a couple times, and that's cool. So the fact of the matter is, like, because there are these gated pathways,
gated in what sense? Like, what
by
gates
boss,
them?
by boss,
right? Yeah. But it's not like a Metroidvania where there would be an ability you don't have yet. Well, there is like that.
There is kind of that. There are keys and locks and that kind of stuff. Like to get into the Raya Lucari Academy proper, there is a specific key you need to get in there.
But like that key isn't like, well, you can't get that key until you get the double jump ability or anything like that, right? Okay.
Yeah, there's nothing like that. There's no like gated pathway based on your skill set. It's gated pathway more so in a like typical Zelda style, where it's like, well, maybe not Zelda, because that's a bad example. More so in like a Resident Evil style, where it'll sure, you need the red key card to get into here. La, la, la.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. In a game like Resident Evil, that red key card, even if you're playing in one of the modes where randomizes things around, you will still eventually find the red key card in the level, especially in the area proper. Raya Lucari is a great example because, like, here's what happens. You get to the academy, and it's got a big set of doors, and it's got this huge, like, blue shield, like shimmering shield, magic shield across it. And it's like, you can't get in here. And it's like, okay, well, how do I get in here? And it's just like, it doesn't even tell you, it doesn't give you any prompts or anything like that saying where to go. It just goes like, well, the game tells you, in general, go explore elsewhere, and you'll eventually figure it out. And so, to eventually figure this out, you have to go into this tiny little secluded spot where there's a dragon that breathes like magic fire. And behind that dragon, who is asleep, there is a dead body, who is one of the instructors at the academy. And if you go behind the dragon and search the body, that body has the key on it to get in. The problem is the game doesn't tell you this, and this on the map, like if your map's like yay big, it's like this tiny little spot. It's so small, and like you will probably eventually come across it because it's a pretty noteworthy location, especially because there's a ring of like things around it. So yeah, eventually you'll get here, but there's a huge dragon blocking it, and if you're not leveled enough, you're like, oh fuck that, no. But the one good thing that I think Elden Ring does is that what it engenders, instead of it being like, okay, you gotta like run through this area, fight the bad guys, get the stuff, all these things, it instead kind of engenders, hey, you have a horse, and we know that you're probably just searching for a clue for the way into this spot, or like through this area, or whatever, or maybe just like grabbing all the loot in a spot that you can possibly and getting the hell out of there. You could just ride in, mashing the like action button, just ride in, doing that, you know, going through it, running through, and grabbing whatever you can get your grubby little hands on. Problem is, of course, that that does kind of like bring the fact that you will mash through prompts as well, which would be like,
oh,
so it's like, you got the thing. And it's like, yeah. It's like celebration. Like, here's the key to the Valkyrie Academy, and you mash through it because the dragon's right there trying to kill you, and you just want to get the thing. You probably don't want to lose your souls. All this stuff. So the game really engenders you to just go into an area, look for like the little like rays of light to go like, oh, there's an item over there. I'm just gonna run over there and grab it and get the fuck out of here. Oh, there's a treasure chest. I'll jump off. I use the iframes to get the treasure chest, grab the thing, get the hell out of here, kind of stuff. So the game kind of like expects you to play this way, which does mean that unfortunately you don't really encounter the majority of the enemies in this game unless you really want to. So
yeah, I'd say it's true of most open world games, right?
Yeah,
By
yeah.
their nature of having to be these big maps that you are traveling vast distances with, and also tend to end up non-linear paths, right? You're going to come back and forth across areas. You're just going to end up a lot of time going like, whatever, I'm just going to run past this enemy. I don't need to fight them, in the same way that, a linear game, that tends to not be the option. And whether that is your more classical Zelda or like Devil May Cry style.
Yeah.
Oh, you walked in this room and now the doors are going to be locked until you kill these enemies. Or, even like 2D Mario, where it's like, yeah, you can technically run past these enemies, but often, hey, you're going to want to squish them because otherwise they're going to be a pain.
Yep, exactly. So like that's always an option. And this game still has that. However, so on my second playthrough, because I will point out, in my first playthrough of this game, I didn't get anywhere near the end of the game. And I know this now because now that I've beaten it via my second playthrough, because I restarted the game from scratch, new character, new build, because I wanted to experience something else, because I was going with a dexterity build, and that's totally fine. Like, that's a very like viable and fun way to play this game. And I was using the flail. Everybody knows there's a flail you can get. It does bleed damage because it's a spiked flail, but it does bleed and bludgeoning. But then also you can upgrade it with a different power up. So I also have it doing frost damage, and it's actually kind of like, it doesn't do a lot of damage up front, but then it's like big chunks of health get taken off enemies as it builds up. It's really funny and a lot of fun. So that was my first playthrough, and I was enjoying that. I was enjoying like fighting things and playing it as a Dark Souls game. But then it came to the open world stuff, and it kind of wore in on me because like I just want to get past these guys. I was like, now they put like okay, I'm seriously running through everything, and now they put like one dude gating my pathway. Okay, here we go. So then it's like okay, I gotta jump down and like fight this guy, or ride into him and fight him on the horse, or like whatever, and just do the thing I gotta do. Now I guess the issue there is that, like I said, if you're not used to fighting things in this game, it gets to be kind of tough, especially for a new player who doesn't really understand. Like, there's a thing that new players do in Dark Souls games, and I don't blame them for it. I've done it too. Anybody who's played a From Software game, especially in the Souls series, has played this way, where they see an attack winding up, and they go, "Oh shit, I gotta get out of the way," and they roll. But then the enemy kind of turns, he's still winding up, and they go, "Oh crap!" And they roll again, and then they go, "What?" And they roll again, and they roll it's basically a 3-threat roll to get out of the way of the attack until they have to use a 4th roll to actually get out of the way if they get out of the way at all. So what ends up happening is you burn through all your stamina, and now you are a lot more vulnerable to attacks. Meanwhile, a more seasoned player would be like, okay, they're winding up, I'm just going to take a few pot shots and then roll at the last second. That kind of thing. I even still do that because sometimes in Elden Ring especially, it's hard to tell which enemies are going to have a lock-on attack that will follow you as they wind up and which ones don't. Because you don't fight them a whole lot. Because you don't have to. You can just run through or roll or ride through. So
yeah, I guess it's never going to like challenge gate you is the only way I can think to put it.
Yeah, like it does and it doesn't.
A traditional Souls game is going to be like, okay, you're gonna get to the end of this bridge and there's going to be X type of enemy, and yeah, you could probably run past them, but chances are you're going to die at some point and respawn, and then you're going to have to learn how to fight this enemy at some point. But I guess I didn't think about that with like an Elden Ring. Yeah, there's a possibility that you just won't run past this kind of enemy, and you're like, I have fought this enemy twice, and I barely understood how he beat it the first 2 times.
Yeah, exactly. Elden Ring is also really lousy with like adding in previous bosses back in as normal enemies as well. I hate that. I understand when it happens in like Dark Souls, those games, they did that a lot. But I get they're just trying to reuse assets for to cheapen the not the experience, but like keep costs down, that kind of stuff. I understand. Yeah. It's fine. I get it. The problem is though, like, the bosses in this game, like, I will say this about Elden Ring, I think the bosses are really well designed, but to a point where I don't think these are good open world, like, regular old enemies. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
Fair is fair, though. They will actually add these enemies in, kind of as just like, okay, here's an area where this one enemy who was a boss is now. It wasn't a named boss, so it's okay. This enemy is just there now. It's like, go get him, Tiger. And I'm just like, all right, cool. It normally is pretty sparing with that, but when you run into them multiple times, it's just like, for instance, I mentioned the big red dog. There are Leopard, yes. There are two more areas I can think of where this dog appears in the game. And in both times, so the first time you fight him is in the Raylikari Academy to get past him into the academy proper. And when you fight him, it's in a smaller room. You can summon creatures in to help you fight and all this stuff. And like you start, like, this thing can't like outrange you or anything because you're always just close enough to get him if you run up or do whatever you have to do. Like, because it's a boss arena. Out in the open world, it gets a lot weirder because now this thing is in an area where, like, okay, you can fight this thing in this area, but it has A, allies, and B, it has a bunch of, like, ways to jump way far away, out of your range of anything, and then just slap you with a magic attack. It just shoots magic daggers. And it's just like, in the arena, that's not a problem because I can see that shit coming. But I'm on my horse trying to either A, escape it, or B, like, grab treasure or whatever. And this thing is just attacking me, and it's also keeping up with my horse. Most things don't keep up with your horse, so this thing is terrifying, and it can actually outpace you. So it's kind of it's scarier than a dragon, in my opinion. Like, these things. Like, I will stop and fight dragons, no problem. But
that
this
makes sense.
Yeah.
But it does sound like it took something that felt like it had intent to its design and
Yes.
a lot of thought and time placed into it, and then it's you have now slapped it into an open world where
haphazardly, yes.
it takes away from that
Yeah.
intent and makes it feel generic.
Yeah, especially because here's the other thing. The lore of the game. Also, so the great lords that you would go out and fight, they all have also alongside them, typically anyway, a wolf-like creature that accompanies them. The only one that you don't fight that has a wolf-like creature that accompanies them is Ronnie, which is in the title card here. Rani.
Sorry. Okay.
R-A-N-N-I. Yeah.
All right.
It's pronounced Ronnie in the game. It's weird. Anyway.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so she has Blide, who is a wolf man. Like, he wears plate mail. He's wearing Guts' plate mail. He has Guts' sword, but he's got a wolf head. It's not a mask either. He is
like a wolf minotaur?
Yeah, sort of. He's like a wolf,
Okay.
He's like a werewolf wearing plate mail. It's pretty badass.
Oh, so like the captain of the 9th division from Bleach, I want to say. I got you.
I guess.
I see where George R. R. Martin's taking his inspiration from.
Yeah, big manga head, George R. R. Martin.
Oh, yeah. No, he loves Bleach.
Yeah. I mean, he might. I don't know. Anyway, that would explain why he's so late with the Winds of Winter.
No, Tite Kubo knew how to stay on schedule and finish a thing.
Yeah, seriously. Like all authors do. Anyway. Where was I? Anyway, yeah, so this...
Ronnie and her wolf man.
That's it, yes. So she has this thing happening. And then, like, Radon doesn't have a wolf man, but he doesn't... that's because he's so bloodthirsty that he killed his own. And then, like, it's, like, Godric didn't have one because he stole the soul from that he has the Great Lord for.
Hey, just to clarify,
Yeah.
Does the game actually explain this, or is this more typical from software?
You know the answer.
Well, you have to read this item description against this story, which you then infer against this thing.
You know the answer, Hassan. It's that, yes. Now, and again, I have no problem with like them messing things around. I don't, honestly, I like the lore of these games. I don't read the lore. I go to YouTube for that. Vadi videos got me back. You know, good enough. But now knowing the lore is that typically a Great Lord's soul is accompanied with like a wolf bodyguard. And it happens at the very end where like you basically, like one of the final bosses you fight has like a wolf bodyguard who's an even bigger werewolf in an even bigger suit of plate mail. It's a really good fight. It's like jumping around the arena. It's cool shit. Yeah, but because of that, like the fact that this red wolf is there in Re Lucaria, that means that you're supposed to fight him first, and that wolf is specifically assigned to be the bodyguard of the boss of that legacy dungeon. So basically, when you defeat that wolf, it's like that weakens the power, quote unquote. It doesn't actually of like the actual boss, so you can pass the bodyguard into the academy proper to go and fight the final boss. That kind of stuff. So, knowing that, seeing this one creature come up multiple times, it's a little annoying. It's not that bad, but it still is kind of like, you know, if they had like just palette swapped it or like gave it a couple less of its powers or something like that, it wouldn't be a big deal. But like this thing has the full range of attacks and everything, so kind of annoying. The other thing is, a big part of this game that when it came out was the exploration side of things, and I've come to realize so a lot of the exploration is digging into mines and specifically going into like these spots to grab items and get mining materials to like strengthen your weapons, all this stuff. Go into other like little dungeons to grab stuff that'll strengthen your summons, that sort of thing. And once I've realized that there are actually items you can give one of the shopkeepers in your main like hub area that just allows them to, now you can buy these things now. And like that happens a lot for Dark Souls as well. But this is a little egregious where you can give them like a lot of these like little bell bearings that give them extra things to sell. And it's like, oh, it's the full range of, I could just buy all this and just upgrade this thing to its max. And oh, okay, sure.
But does it take a while to get enough of the items to do that?
It does, unless you know where to go, because where this game is still open world, there are things you can do that will just let you fucking get to a crazy area and be like, oh, here's the upgrade bell bearing for level 4 stuff. And now I have that, and now I don't need to worry about buying anything else. It's weird. Yeah.
On the exploration, does that, because to me, the best, most interesting parts of open world games tends to be having, it's usually some sort of big, tall thing you have to climb. And so whether it's, Skyrim with some mountain that you're going to very jankily figure out of like, okay, it clearly doesn't want me to get up there, but if I just skirt this right, the game engine is going to glitch out in a way I can get up this, or, an Assassin's Creed, you're going to climb up this crazy tall building.
Yeah.
Or, I can't think of what game it was, but I remember there's something just out, like, on the edge of the water, and it's, you eventually have to build up enough stamina to be able to get all the way out there. Does it have one of those? This, like, you're going to be able to see this thing from most places on the map. It's maybe going to take a while to, build up your stamina or to unlock, enough double, triple, quadruple jump, whatever it is, to be able to climb this thing. Does it have one of those?
So, yes and no. In a weird way, the whole game is based on the premise of getting to the Erd tree, which is a giant, like, it's massive. It's like world spanning tree. Like, it's set to one spot, and the branches expand out to the entirety of the map.
Yeah, no, I've seen it, but not. That's not like a, how to put it. The thing I think is the thing I think is cool about a lot of those situations, whether it's a Skyrim mountain or a Assassin's Creed or whatever.
Yep.
Is it just takes time to do it, right? It's you're gonna sit here and you're gonna have to just climb up this thing and be looking at it and going like, okay, go here, and maybe you'll take a wrong path and you're like, oh wait, no, you know what, I need to go this other way actually to get, and that it's an accomplishment. It feels like when you finally get to the thing.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There is one instance of specifically that where you're climbing up a thing to get to a location. And it is harrowing because it is on the side of this massive, like, divine god spire. And it's not the biggest thing in the world, but, like, it's pretty big. And when you see it, it's like, oh, I can climb that? Oh, shit, yeah, let's go. because what you have to do is like get inside of it first, and then you're at the top, and like you can go if you have the Great Lord's Soul, you can go through the doors and get into there to get you like the cool like great rune to give you more power kind of thing. Or you can basically go in the other direction and start going down inside of the tower, which is like dropping down between like elevator platforms and all this crazy stuff, and things are attacking you, and it's a kind of a cool descent. And there are a few times where like in the lower levels, it wants you to basically like ooh, you're so deep in the lower levels now. There is like a city under here, and you want to get up this one path. It's like it's really tall, and you want to climb that. So there is stuff like that, but the majority of Elden Ring is either horizontally laid out, or you're going down into a thing. A lot because, and there's a reason for it. I get you, and I like that stuff too. But the reason for it is that what they like you to do is get to an edge. Look at it and go like, okay, there's this, and this problem over here. There's a sniper over here. Okay, here's how to tackle it, I think. And then you can kind of like do a little tactics and like get through it and strategize. That's always kind of been the MO with From Software. That's usually what they want. So that said, like that stuff is there. But it really does come down to most of the game is more horizontally laid out, where even if you're climbing up a thing, like you climb up Mount Gelmir, which is a giant mountain, and it's more, you don't feel like you're climbing you don't feel like you're climbing a fantasy mountain. You feel like you're climbing a real mountain, which is good and bad. But you know how like mountains have like, you know, plateaus, and there'll be like things situated on the mountain because people will just live there. That kind of stuff. It feels like it's that. So you're following this path, and you find guards, and you realize, okay, somebody's dug into the side of the mountain here. I can just climb this ladder and get this stuff.
It sounds like it doesn't feel like it is a I don't want to say not a challenge, but the thing about climbing those mountains in Skyrim,
not the same challenge
in Assassin's Creed, is that, you know, it's the thing where you sit there and you know, like, this is going to be... I got to do this. Is it stupid? Yeah, I'm being an idiot for doing this. I should just go off and do some other mission or whatever.
Like, Assassin's Creed's a great example because, like, you see, like, for instance, in, like the Assassin's Creed 4, whichever one was the France one, it's like, we have the Eiffel Tower. Unity, thank you. We have the Eiffel Tower. We have Notre Dame. We have all these, like, important Parisian locations. You can just climb them. And it's like, fucking A. And you see that and you go like, I want to climb that. In Elden Ring, those things do exist, but you can't climb them in much the same exciting way. So that's the problem there. That said, like I said, the majority of exploration is either horizontal or going downward. And the downward exploration, though, is when it gets truly exciting, because you start to, like, that's when this game gets kind of crazy, because and I mean, like, I know Tears of the Kingdom didn't just do this because Elden Ring did it, or at least I expect they didn't, but Elden Ring has, so there's the top layer of the world, and then there's deep layers. It goes very, very far down. Like the first encounter in an elevator just takes you down, and you're like, oh, okay, this is fine. Please stop. Why aren't you stopping? Oh, God. And so you go like, it's like a kilometer or more down into the depths of the world. And you're like, oh, this is crazy. And so you start exploring it. And then there's more to it than just that. Especially if you follow Randy's quest, she gets you really ingrained into that shit. And you go to like spots where like, it is like there's primordial shit down there. It's not good, but like it's cool in like a fun fantasy horror way. So that's where the game really, I think, shines, is like getting you deep into those dark, weird areas, because it starts feeling more and more alien as you go down. And you get down so far deep into these dungeons that, like, when you in the very final one, when you emerge when you get to the final, like, elevator, this one is a lot longer than even the first one you hit to get firstly into the depths, and it's just like it's like a minute long elevator. It just goes, and it's just like, holy shit, what's happening here? And you arrive on like a plateau that you had never seen before, and the only way to get to this plateau is to get through the underground first and then ride up to the top. And it's just like that stuff, like that's really good. Like when you discover, like, oh shit, you look at your map, you're like, this is where I'm at? Holy crap. And that stuff's really cool. So yeah, like that's where the game shines. Like unfortunately there's no, like, you see a thing, like, I gotta go and climb that, or I gotta go and get there. The Erd tree is the main thing, I guess, that really signifies that. But even that just sort of becomes backdrop for a lot of the game, because eventually there's a point where you get to the spot where the Erd tree is, and it's just like, cool, who cares? And then your companion, Melania, she's just like, hey, we should burn that fucker down. Yeah. And you're like, hell yeah, let's burn this giant tree down.
Oh.
Yeah. She's a bit of an, she's a bit of an arsonist, as well as a, anarchist. And you go like, oh man, I can't get past the Erd tree, or the thorns of the Erd tree, to go in there and become the Elden Lord. And she's like, hey, yeah, if you just burn it down, there wouldn't be any thorns to block your way. Just saying.
Big fire, though.
Yeah, you wouldn't need a big fire, wouldn't you? Hey, look at that mountain over there, Mount Gelmir. It's got a giant kiln on it. Wonder what that was for, huh? Maybe something interesting. I'm
pretty sure you don't use a kiln to start a tree fire. That's not what kilns are for.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, but it's fantasy stuff. If you light the fire, it does. You can direct the flame. Though it's a whole lore thing. Those who light the fire can direct the flames and essentially become like pyromancers, kind of thing. You can
another thing you had to learn from a YouTube video. I got you.
More or less, this one actually is kind of spelled out in this game, but it's not super clear.
So I do wonder, like, in Elden Ring 2, or presumably, their next game would be an Elden Ring 2.
Yeah, I would assume.
Pretty surprising if that was not the thing they were working on next, given the popularity of that game.
Yeah.
How much do you think that game, and for lack of a better term, but I would say, needs to modernize and needs to finally get past just a lot of the elements of From Software games that personally I think they've kind of gotten away with too long? And what I mean by that is a lot of their just overall menu stuff, so kind of the layout of it, as well as the fonts and text. A lot of the icon stuff. Like, I know it's iconic and people love the bottom corner Dark Souls, or whatever they call it. I'm not
little
sure.
D-pad thingy.
Yeah, little D-pad thing.
Mean, yes.
Like, you look at that, I'd argue that thing looks embarrassing for that game. When you look at that and you're like,
yeah, fair.
This is a PS2 looking menu, and just these basic JPEGs on the screen that, there's no graphical flourish when you do a thing with it, right? Yeah. When I think about where modern gaming is on a lot of that stuff, right? Plenty of games have a lower D-pad menu, but it's like, well, if I press, up on the D-pad, if it's a potion, it's like, well, it's going to show kind of like the potion emptying, and then it's slowly going, it's going to then be grayed out and slowly refill before I can use one again,
that
kind of thing. And like, pause menu stuff, Just a lot of that stuff. I'd also argue, personally, I think that a lot of their... I've said it before, I think a lot of their games look like Vaseline has been smeared across the screen.
So, okay, I think Elden Ring is maybe one of the best looking ones they've made.
It's better. It's still...
Yeah.
And part of it is their just graphical style, and it
Yes.
just doesn't quite jive for me.
I get you. I get you.
I'd also argue, I think their sound design isn't the best.
I agree.
It's not bad. It's just, it doesn't feel as...
I fully agree. So here's the thing.
Immersive.
I agree. So here's the thing. I when Elden Ring came out, I think a year or two just before Elden Ring hit the shelves, was the Demon Souls remake came out.
Oh,
and
yeah, right. The Blue Point, I think, did that?
Blue Point, yes. Now, the cool thing that Blue Point did with the Demon Souls remake, because they rebuilt that game from the ground up, basically. But what they did that I loved was they redid the same design, especially for the magic. The magic felt very tangible and fucking delicious.
That remake definitely, it's like, oh man, visually this looks way, and
yeah, I agree.
It just looks less Vaseline smear. And yes, audio definitely was one thing I watched. I was like, this thing is so much better than their games.
Yeah.
The menus, I'd even argue, were a little bit better. They still mostly were that same style, but like
they look nice.
But
anyway,
if they do an Elden Ring 2 or whatever the next game is, do you think they can continue to get away with that? Or do you think that, like, okay, Elden Ring was so big, if they do this again, I don't want to say the more casual fans, but, the less hardcore, the less, or people who have not been there since, Demon's Souls fans, going like, oh my God, From Software is great. Do you think they'll see that and just go like, oh, like, hey, I was okay with that on the first time, but second time around, like, I can't put up with this level of...
I think they'll have a hard time pleasing people for the second time around, especially newer fans.
I definitely think a second game is going to have a difficult time pleasing people because the expectations of it are going to be... We opened with it basically saying this game is a tsunami of
masterpiece,
positive talk of it.
Yeah.
And that trying to follow that up must be a god-awful nightmare. But I do have to wonder if... To me, it feels like a lot of people look past that. Because, man, looking at that for Elden Ring game that came out in 2022?
Yes.
Yeah, last year.
1 year ago, yep.
It's like, oh, man, it feels like they got away with it this time. That if this had been another... Dark Souls, people would have called it out at that point, gone, nah, guys, you need to do better at this point. But because it was technically a different thing, they still got away with it.
Yeah, I think that may be this case. But here's the thing, though. So, I think you're mostly right. However, a couple things. A game just came out this year called Lies of P. You may have heard of it. It's a bit of a more indie darling.
Starring Timothée
Chalamet, yeah. But it's a bit of Pinocchio, all this stuff. So this game, it is, but it's not. I don't know. I don't care. It doesn't matter. But the point is,
they inspired by.
Sure, it doesn't matter. Basically, they took the Dark Souls formula of like, and this is more like a Dark Souls Soulsborne style game, where it's more linear. And there's a lot of like more like gated pathways that I enjoyed, the boss fights and that kind of stuff. So here's the thing, though: their menus are better designed. They are doing something more interesting than From Software was doing with their weaponry and how to like design weaponry and that kind of stuff. And the way the way the game flows is a lot more palatable, I think, for a more like the more common consumer of this kind of style of game. So I think that if Elden Ring is going to go forward with Elden Ring 2, they are going to need to refine some stuff and like take a note out of Blue Point and Lies of P. Get the sound design sounding really good, because this game, Elden Ring, sounds still like it was Dark Souls 1. The music is still great. However, there's a huge problem with the tracks, and that's that. So in Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and Bloodborne and all the stuff, every boss has its own unique track. So when you hit that boss, it's like, fuck yeah, I love this fighting this boss because the music is pumping. It's got the big choir sound. It's got these like nice little intonations. Oh, I love it. But in Elden Ring, because there's a lot more bosses, and not every boss needs to be unique, there's a lot of reused one song. And you're like, oh, this song again, huh? Okay, this is just a weak-ass, shitty, stupid boss. Here we go. Why does he even have a health bar? Kind of thing. Yeah, so it becomes one of those, and it's just like, okay, there's too much overuse, too much reuse stuff. The sound design kind of sucks. Like, the gameplay is still there, but it's like you can kind of ignore most of the gameplay. And it's just, there's a lot of stuff that needs to be, I think, refined and taken from other games that have done their style in a more unique way, or even a better way, and maybe gone forward with in that system. I mean, From Software also needs to treat its employees better, but that's beyond the point. So, when you say Elden Ring 2, like, I think they have to do that stuff personally, because it took me, like I said, I picked up Elden Ring right away, started playing it, and I was like, 50 hours in before I went like, I don't know, look man, you lost me. And I stopped playing it, and went back to play like Sekiro, Bloodborne, or anything else that they've done that I actually liked before. And then when I pick it back up, I'm like, those problems are still there, but I'm willing to ignore them because I want to see some of the content for myself that I have missed. Because, yeah, I've watched, like, speed runs and a couple of Let's Plays of Elden Ring, so I know where some of the stuff is, but it's not the same as experiencing it yourself.
Yep.
Especially in speed runs, because I am not doing those weird warps. Fuck that. To do a weird warp, you need to like turn your like frame rate down and then squish the screen into like 480p, and it's just like
I'll never be that kind of.
No man, too weird for me.
It is almost alien to me trying to understand the idea that there are people who get pleasure out of this. I get pleasure out of watching it,
cool.
But the idea of somebody actually dedicating their time to mastering these weird things is like, you find this fun, huh? All right.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was, but there's a YouTuber that like, I can't remember who it was, but they like mastered a dumb, crappy like N64 golf game, and that's like their first stint into speed running. But that's because only one other person had the record for it. He's like, I can probably beat that, and it took him like
probably
ages.
Golf.
So I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't do it. I find it interesting, but I couldn't do it. So like, but still, experiencing it for myself is the main thing, and playing it my way is also a thing as well, because like I tend to take these things a lot slower. Even though you can just run through, like blast through an area, grab everything you can, just leave. I like to, explore the nooks and crannies. I like to approach challenges in my own way, that kind of thing. I like to play the game. I like to use weapons that I want to use. I like to use magic. The second playthrough, I should point out, I decided to, okay, magic gets a bad rap in Souls games because it is essentially easy mode. In the Souls games, because you can sit back and just fire off a crazy spell and just murder something in one hit. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. And it means you're outside of the range of a lot of like the bad attacks, all that kind of stuff. Elden Ring does a lot to kind of like have enemies with like really good range options, so you are never totally safe if you're a wizard. In previous games you were, but like in this game they're like, yeah, no, this guy could just fucking chuck a rock at you or something. It's a really big one too, or whatever. Or they can move across the arena in like 2 steps and get to you. Don't worry, like you should worry, kind of thing, which is fine. But magic still becomes a really overpowered system in this game. But the problem is that like the magic is really cool in Elden Ring. There's a lot of like interesting spells that are out there that I wanted to experience for myself. Like you can basically make one of the spells lets you make a big old magic great bow. You can fire off a huge arrow. You can overcharge the arrow as well and seeks the target into good long distance sniper attack spell kind of thing.
It seems extremely broken. Go on.
Well, here's the other thing. It gets more broken when you find its upgraded cousin that fires 5 arrows at the same time. The windup takes a long time, mind you, but you're pulling back 5 of these things and launching them, and they kind of just phalanx out. Like it feels really good to use magic in this game, especially like the ones that like create giant blades out of your staff, and you're just like smashing a guy with a huge magic blade, or like you can summon up just like pull rocks out of the earth and huck those. Or you can, just like stamp your staff down and you can summon a meteor swarm. Or you can like charge your staff up with like a stream of energy and just like drill through a guy. And you just watch their health bars go and just disappears. That stuff is really cool and just, it's so fun to play with. But it is sort of easy mode. So I booted up my old save just kind of like get back into playing with a weapon as well. But then I also went back to my newer save, and I was like, magic's great and all, but I did just get the Dark Moon Greatsword, which is the Moonlight Greatsword from every other From Software game. It is also in Armored Core 6, so yeah. It's not a big sword, but it's a big wrist blade kind of thing. But still. Sure. But yeah, the Darkmoon Greatsword is really good. So basically, I just like, I'm going to use this for the most part anyway instead. So I'll just kind of like charge this up and just like shoot like big arcs of magic out. And yeah, that's also fun. Or you can just, not do that and just smack a guy with it, and it uses your intelligence. It's a really good for wizard build kind of thing. But it does mean your wizard, your squishy little guy, has got to get up into melee combat to hit, which is a problem. But at a certain point, magic in these games becomes boring because it becomes like the way to solve all your problems, because you can just cast a spell and kill a thing in like 2 hits because you've dumped all your power into your intelligence, and you're just like, yep, that thing dies now because of this one spell I cast, as opposed to, okay, I got to jump in there with a jump attack, smash this guy down, he goes to his knees, I can then pick him up and like I can do like a coup de grace on him kind of thing, and then this guy's like another dude next to him. I gotta worry about that. So the melee combat is a lot more interesting in Souls games and in Elden Ring especially. But the magic does just feel so good. Like there are cool faith spells, and there are faith spells in the original like Dark Souls games too. That you can shoot discs out and you can shoot fire and all this stuff. But there are ones in Elden Ring that's like, yeah, I'm just gonna like, I can just summon down lightning to burst around me, or like I can hurl like 3 discs out in a direction and make them spin in opposite directions, and it's just, it looks and feels cool. But I mean, like, it does still feel like easy mode because, I mentioned that boss that was really hard, Radon, and his whole thing is that he's so big and bloodlusty that he's on this desert like plateau, and it's just sand everywhere, and he's up on top of this like small island of sand, and he's just shooting arrows down at you. And when you get to him, he's on a tiny little horse for his size, because he's giant. You're like this big, and he pulls out 2 huge great swords, and he starts fighting with those things. And this fight is really hard. It's so hard, the game allows you to summon multiple NPCs inside the arena to try and help you fight this guy. And yeah, doing that makes the fight a little easier. My second playthrough, I was stuck in Radon. Just today, I had beaten him my second playthrough. Just, kind of on a whim. Just jumped back in and, tried it again and got him. It took me 3 or 4 tries. But, as a wizard, I jumped in, summoned some people, cast some spells, and I just watched him die. No real problem at all. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. So, there's kind of an easy button there for Souls games is the magic systems. So, it kind of becomes because I wanted to explore this system that I don't normally use in Souls games, which is the magic stuff. I just kind of discovered that the game just becomes more boring if you use magic, and that sucks because when you're using cool magic spells, you want to feel as if you're wielding the powers of gods and calling down laser beams and shit. Not this challenge is becoming trivial because I can just plink him and then whatever, who cares? Yeah, so even beyond that, there's the big noteworthy hardest boss in the game, Melania. She's an optional boss. To get to her, you gotta go through a whole gauntlet full of crap. It sucks. It really sucks. There was a guy who based his whole Elden Ring career on fighting her alone with a bucket on his head with 2 swords. Let me solo her. God bless you. But she's very hard. And she's incredibly hard, even if you're using magic, because she has ways to kind of DQ out with using magic. But I still found that even if as long as I have a couple of summons in there, or if I have a summon, or if I have just the bell toll summons, you can just that summons in an NPC helper for you. Yeah, not trivial, but pretty easy. Especially compared to a lot of other Souls games. She has one attack that's really hard, really, really, really difficult, which is just a big flurry of blows, which just goes. She's got a really big katana, so it goes all around her. So it's really hard to dodge.
Like an actual katana?
Ish. It's more of just a big curved sword. I wouldn't call it. I guess I shouldn't call it a katana. It's got a small little.
Mostly just because I was isn't that game supposed to be very European? That's weird.
Oh, it's got katanas everywhere. Yeah. It's got a lot of Asian stuff in it too. Yeah.
All right.
Anyway,
sure. Jar Jar Martin writes Asian stuff real well.
Yeah, exactly.
By a Japanese developer, so I'm sure they handle those parts.
Yeah, they do exactly. Yeah, as far as I know, George R. R. Martin didn't write a whole lot of stuff, just setting stuff.
I've no idea.
No idea.
I guess he didn't write a whole lot because. Sure doesn't seem to do much writing these days.
Whoa, take that, George R. I'm sure he's still writing stuff. I think he's still writing TV and that kind of stuff, so, yeah, whatever. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, that said, so that's kind of my experience with Elden Ring, is that, my real problem, though, besides the fact that, I kind of chose a build that trivialized a lot of the fights, this game's too damn long. Way too damn... So... Every time you get to a point where it's all right, this is the end of the game, it goes ha, you thought this was the end of the game? Sucker, there's more for you to do over there now. And I'm no, I just want to beat the boss. I was trying to mainline this.
But I was playing something earlier, and I don't remember what it was now, and I've held this belief for a very long time.
Yeah.
Now, I think video games in general are very... very bad at actually having a good climax into a final battle ending. That it'll go, you know, hey, here's all the characters, giving and the best example I have is Persona 5, where For anybody who knows it, there's this scene where you think you're about to
get arrested,
where you think you've basically lost, and you end up back in the Velvet Room. You're in this jail cell. All your friends are like, "Yeah, we failed. We suck." And you have to give these rousing speeches, and you break them out of it.
Hell yeah!
You're remembering all these heartfelt moments, and it's like, yes, you have now found the power to fight this enemy. Go stop them. You're like, awesome. Here's 40 minutes of you having to fight a bunch of minions, several mini bosses, and the final boss. It's like, no, that's not how you do a climax. A climax is after this, you basically immediately go, and so many video games I find like that. Of you're just like, oh, we're building up to it.
Yeah.
No, have another fight. Have another fight. Have another fight. It's like, no, don't.
Yeah.
like if your build up to the final moment takes too long.
Yep.
You're watering it down, and then the impact of it is lost. I'm just going, whatever.
So let me describe this to you. So basically, okay, the main thing in the game is getting to the Ur Tree, right? That's the main objective. Let's say. So when you first get into the area where the Ur Tree is based, which is the Altus Plateau, you can get to the city, at least the city gates, where you can try and get to the Ur Tree. Those are closed, so you can't get there. All right. Whatever. If you want to get to the Ur Tree early-ish, to the Laenel capital, you can go around the gates to a kind of secret door, guarded by a horse riding. I think they call themselves dragon knights, but they're horses. It's whatever. Doesn't matter. A knight on a horse, and he's a boss. You could also optionally go and follow Ronnie's quest line, and you'll be teleported into the Laenel capital. So yeah, just because, so you can either do a side quest that is like a few hours, I say a few hours, I'm talking 10, 12 hours worth of stuff, or go and just fight this guy. This guy's notably pretty hard, but doable. So once you beat this guy, you're now inside the capital. Great. So once you explore the capital, because it is a whole city. They put a whole fucking city in this game. I will point that out. That's kind of cool. Maybe a bit much, because it's got layers. There's an upper city, lower city, sewers, everything. So on your first pass through, it's really hard to figure out where the fuck you are. But eventually you understand. And you will get there. Get to the main gates. And those are blocked off by the first big boss you fought, who's I actually teleported away at the very end, and now I'm back to fight you. I was actually this guy. And his cane opens up, and it's a big sword. It's okay, yeah, sure. And you beat him again, because he's still the same guy, just with more health. So, because, whatever. And then you go up to the stairs, oh shit, the Ur Tree's right there. You walk up the stairs. There's thorns blocking the way. It's oh man.
Nope. You've immediately.
I have more. I have more.
But they immediately screwed up, right?
I know.
You literally just did. Oh, we brought back the first box,
yes.
And you're like,
yes.
Okay, we're going back to you. Mm-hmm. Hey, we're calling back. I just kicked his butt.
Yeah.
I'm feeling awesome. Now then, boss. Right. That is how you build up.
Yeah.
The second there is anything after him, you've screwed up. You've done it wrong.
Yeah. So basically after this, there's more. So if they had followed your the way it should be done, you fight this guy. The Ur Tree's right there. You go in. There's the Elden Lord. You fight him for the right to be the actual Elden Lord. That's how it should be done. No. So there's thorns there. You go back down to the bonfire. You sit out, and the mind's like, "Let's go burn the fucker down." And you go in. So then you climb out Gelmir. You go to the kiln, which you had to get there after fighting a giant, a fire giant, which is actually probably one of the best fights in the game. It's a huge dude with his own giant kiln, and he's flinging snow at you, and then he breaks his leg, and now he's shooting fire. He's got an eyeball in the middle of his chest. It's a cool fight. So you beat him. You light the kiln. You're yeah, here we go. So then you go back. Now the capital is filled with ash, so the level has changed. and you go back to the capital. You get to the same spot after you get past a few things, and now that you're there, it's another boss to fight. He's like, now that you've beaten this guy, I can't let that stand. You must face me. I'm the king of something. You don't know anything about me. That's fine. But he's got a cool move system because he uses an axe at first, and then he ditches the axe. He just bare hands you, and like he's Ryu or something. He's fucking Zangief. It's kind of cool. Anyway, so you beat him, and then the game goes like, yes, but you can't. There's actually more for you to do before you get to, because the thorns are still there. They're on fire, but the doors need to open from the inside. Okay, so here's what you gotta go to the Farum capital, which is this thing you have to get through to via like a warp gate. All right, cool. You got through there. Beat a bunch of stuff here. Sure, good job. Now there's an optional boss that looks to be the thing that will let you into the gate. He's not it. Don't worry about it. You can fight him if you want to. Yeah, whatever. But actually, once you get here, you have to go up these stairs, past another optional boss Dragon Knight thing, and then you fight this werewolf and giant plate mail who just really wants to fuck you up, and that's a hard fight. And once you beat him, you go back to the capital, and this guy's in a room that you now have to go back through again, even though you've been through this room like 3 times. And now you're here, he has a whole speech, and then you interrupt it, and you fight him, and he's casting magic and stuff, and you beat him. It's easy. But he was a guy who you knew in the Round Table Hold, your hub city, and he was like, I'm this dude, actually, and stuff. And you beat him, and then you go to now you finally enter the door, and then fight the Elden Lord, Radek or Radagast or whatever his name is. Their name, it's like a brother and sister. They swap between. They had the same body, but they swap its souls. It's weird. Anyway, you beat them, and then once you beat them, they then turn into the Great Elden Beast, and then you beat that, and now the game is over. Once you sit at the bonfire and select which ending you want.
That's dumb.
Yeah, so that's how you mainline it. But the other problem is to really truly get here, because again, this is a game of exploration, and the game wants you to see all this stuff. Once you hit Mount Gelmir, I didn't mention this, so there's a fire giant you gotta fight. To get to this fire giant, you gotta go to the side of the mountain, do a bunch of shit in the volcano area, where there's a mansion and all this stuff. Do a bunch of crazy crap there. Fight their lord, who's a giant rotten snake creature, that's an alright one. It's whatever. It's a callback to the previous games where you had to pick up a giant wind sword and kill a thing with a wind sword, and it's the same thing. You fight this guy this way, you kill him, and now you got the key to get into Mount Gelmir, because then you can do this teleporting thing, all this stuff. Great. Okay, now you can go up into the snow area because you needed 2 halves of a big medallion to get up there. And it's just you do all the stuff bunch over here to get to this door. Go there. It's too much. It's too fucking much. It's too fucking much. There's too much. So okay.
Good news, there's no way Elden Ring 2 is going to be less content.
No,
that's not how games ever work.
No. Okay. You know, one of the big talk points for Breath of the Wild was hey, once you start that game, get into Hyrule proper, the castle's right there. You can see Ganon essentially right there. If you were good enough and you had the gumption, you could walk in and beat his ass right now.
Yeah.
That was one of the big talk points with that game. I feel as if Elden Ring kind of wanted to have that, because hey, as long as you get to the Erd Tree, you can get there and you can just end the game then. Yeah, 2 hours. Who cares? Yeah, whatever. But like, that's not the case because it gates you off in a very annoying way. Like I said, I like it when the game gates me, when the previous games gated me off from like getting to a new area by like going like, hey, there's a boss here. Once you beat him, you're good. You get past him. You can keep moving on. Don't worry about it. But in Elden Ring, it's like, okay, oh shit, you can't get past this because we've like artificially blocked you off because there's a door here that you can't get past. Well, what do? Well, how about you go and explore and go find a different boss over here that is sort of related to the thing that you're trying to do over here. Great! It's extremely annoying. To a point where, like, every time I thought, like, okay, I got this, I'm on my way, I'm pretty... Because I thought, like I said, I've watched speedruns and Let's Plays and that kind of stuff. I thought a lot of those bosses that they'd fight, because the game says all you have to do is beat 2 of the Great Lords, and then you can go and fight the main boss. It says that to you. It lies hard, because, yeah, you can just beat the 2 of the Great Lords and get there, but then it's like, hey, there's a shit ton more stuff to do for you to actually go and confront that Great Lord. So, yeah, it's just an annoying thing. And this is kind of my experience with the game, is that, like, if Elden Ring 2 comes out, I just hope it's less annoying than Elden Ring 1. A lot of cool stuff in this game. There's still some good things here. There's some awesome boss fights, good world design, character design's great. A lot of the writing around it is pretty stellar. But then, like, everything else, it's either boring or annoying. And that is my re-experience with Elden Ring.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the note to end it on in a way, so why don't you tell people where to find us?
I almost don't want to tell you where to find me at this point, because
you have to. From Software
people. I'm warning you, I swear. I just want this game. This one just doesn't do it for me. I beat Millennia. What more do you want? Here, look. Here's footage of me. I haven't got footage yet, but here's footage of me in the Halleck Tree Capital.
Sure.
Where she's at. What more do you want from me, guys? Anyway, you should go to our Twitter page, which is at EIFNAR. Go there and just lambast me about how much I am stupid and my opinions on Elden Ring sucks, and how I should be hung by my toes until I'm dead. You weird toe freaks.
Yeah. Go on. Just go on. Yep, sure.
You should go to our Spotify, iTunes, YouTube page, which is where you're probably watching this. Like, subscribe, and all that. Click things. There are buttons. There are buttons everywhere. On YouTube, Spotify, all those places. Just start clicking shit.
Accurate.
Yeah. Until you eventually like our show.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
I would, if I was you, just take your mouse, or if you're watching on a device, on your phone or whatever, just hold your phone out like this, and then just slap it until you hit the right buttons.
Yeah, eventually that'll work, I guess.
Yeah. Also, share the show with your friends. I'm sure somebody out there is going to have the same opinion as I do. Eventually.
Or something based on tsunami of love for it.
I have heard some actual, like, good criticism of this game. Zero Lenny, a YouTuber, who likes this game, has also said, hey, once you know the key areas, this game's kind of boring. Because a lot of, like, it's like 3 hours of running around, and then you get to play the game. Anyway, you should also go to our friend's site, which is djdane.com. That's the guy that does our music. djdane.com. Go there, listen to his great tunes. I don't know, maybe isekai him into the Elden Ring world. See how he lasts.
Sure. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. You know what? I bet he would be Let Me Solo Her. Yeah. 2 katanas, bucket on his head, underwear. Nothing else. Fuck
yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah. Anyway, that's it for our show. Tune in next time for another Eladarids episode of Everything is Fine is Ruined. See ya.
See.
Say it. You are correct. You win.